Three massive myths about artists, about learning to draw and paint. First one I think is dangerously wrong. So think about Van Gogh or Van Gogh paintings. Whether you like them or not, I actually really like them. I feel like they really connect me to what he cared about visually in the world. And so, I find them really interesting and beautiful. But the point is, he very famously chopped his ear off, right? And was just, had a lot of mental health struggles. And very often when artists are depicted in movies and TV shows and stuff like that, they are either suffering from severe mental illness, they're really abrasive and rude or weird with people, they struggle with social interactions and things like that. You got to be eccentric and crazy. You got to be this tortured artist in order to create something amazing, to be a genius, etc. To me, this is a huge myth. It's not necessary to have a lot of mental anguish and struggle in order to be a great artist. I think if Van Gogh, I'm going to call him Vincent because I don't know how to pronounce the name. So if Vincent had been able to get therapy, and maybe he would have lived a longer life and been able to create more art and enjoyed it along the way, I don't think the paintings would have suffered if he had dealt with whatever was going on in his head. Sometimes, drawing and painting can be solitary. You do it on your own and it can be so engrossing, and you just want to do more and more of it. I just want to draw and paint all the time. And that means that, it's easy to then not see people and just be indoors and painting in a studio, or even if you're painting outside, you're not talking to people, and so you can get lonely. And so then, of course, mental health struggles can emerge from that. But that doesn't mean that the mental health struggle led to the great paintings. All the work on the paintings, all the connection with what you love and care about, visually speaking, and trying to capture that in the painting, that leads to great drawings and paintings. And maybe an unwanted side effect of that, if it's not dealt with, if it's not managed, could be a mental health. I've had a pretty severe anxiety problem years ago. So I've been through therapy, I've been through all this kind of stuff, the anguish, the inner, pain, etc. It's not helpful. It's not. I have a very active imagination, and I think having a very active imagination can contribute to anxiety, because you can imagine all these what if things. What if this happens, and what if that happens, and so on. But that doesn't mean that all the anxiety is actually necessary for the imagination. If you can get like now, I have a lot of much better skills for managing all of that stuff, and I can just enjoy the imagination, for the positive aspects of it without getting all crazy about it, right? So if you feel like I want to be an artist, I got to be a tortured artist, I got to it's good to go out and see people. We're humans, we're built that way. It's not always easy. I'm naturally quite a shy person, etc. But putting in that effort to do that, having anxiety, etc., or depression or whatever, getting therapy, getting help, it's only going to be good for you, and it's not going to damage the artwork at all, at least in my opinion. So myth number 2 is kind of the opposite of the first one. Sometimes people believe that learning to draw and paint, it should just be pure joy, happy, fun times. Candy floss and rainbows all the time, because it's like, you've got real life and it's like stressful, and then I do this because I enjoy it and I like it. And so if I'm sitting down and drawing and I'm getting frustrated, what is the point? I should stop. It's not working. It's supposed to be making me feel, happy, fun times. And I'm not having happy, fun times. I'm just like banging my head against the wall, trying to understand how to draw, which is a hard thing. All right. So what I always think about when people say this is, I always think about when I'm walking through the park and there's all these guys playing football, right? And they're just screaming at each other. What are you doing? Pass the ball. They're screaming at their teammates, and they just look so angry the whole time. They look absolutely outraged the whole time they're playing football, and then they'll score a goal and they're overjoyed. They're going through such an emotional roller coaster, and I think, these guys are having the time of their life. They love this, they do it voluntarily, and it all seems very healthy. And then afterwards, they'll all slap each other on the back and have a joke about what happened, etc. Now, during the game, they weren't just like, oh, this is so fun, right? They were having lots of emotions and feelings. Another quick analogy is a roller coaster, right? It's terrifying, which is why it's enjoyable. Or traveling, that's probably the best one. You go on a trip, there's so many unknowns, there's so much confusion, a lot of things go wrong, etc. And that is part of the fun, and that becomes part of the really fond memory later. And part of the story that you tell about that thing is not that it was just pure joy fun, it's the whole gamut of emotions. And so when you're learning to draw and paint, there's going to be disappointment, there's going to be confusion, there's going to be frustration, there's going to be moments of joy, but all of it is about something really great, building something really fantastic. Really wonderful experiences include all kinds of emotions. Why I never think of these emotions as just like negative or things to get rid of. Sadness and even anxiety and everything is part of being a human being. If I'm feeling stuff, I'm a human being, and it's inevitable that I'm going to feel those things, and I'm living my life when I feel those things. If I try and just avoid all of those things, then I'm going to be avoiding life. And learning to draw and paint is it's a real life thing to do. For someone like you who's interested in art, it's a core experience in life. It's living life, is creating art. And there are some things which are just kind of avoiding life, and there are some things which are living life. And to me, drawing and painting is living life, and therefore includes all these crazy emotions. The third myth is a little bit more practical, a little bit more technical, but it's the idea that you should be able to make something, some great piece of art from anything, because if you're skilled enough, right? Like if you're trying to draw and paint something and it's not working, it's definitely because you just don't have the skills. But very often when I see people struggling with a drawing or a painting, I just go, you know what, the reference that you're using here, the thing that you're drawing and painting, it just isn't conducive to a painting here. It's just going to be you've made it so hard for yourself just in the selection of what you are drawing and painting. And if you chose a different one, you'd have a much easier time of it. And so actually, as people get more advanced and have more experience as a painter or as an artist, I think they get more selective about what they're going to paint, not less selective. They don't just go, oh, show me anything, I'll make a great painting out of it. They get more selective. So as they're more and more interested, get better and better, say, at figure drawing. Let's say Lane Brown said this to me. So he was saying that, for his drawings that he likes to do, the lighting needs to be just so, and it needs to be a certain type of pose. And if the lighting is too even and it's not making those nice shadow shapes in a design that works for him, if the pose is, it doesn't have any interesting shapes happening to it, or has too many tangents between the forms, they just happen to line up with each other too much, he might even sit that pose out. He might just sit on his phone during that pose and wait for the next pose. With landscape artists, they'll go out, and a huge part of their skill set is not just making amazing paintings from anything. They're looking and they're trying to find the scene with the lighting that they need to create their painting. And if that's wrong, they aren't going to try and make that painting, right? So the selection is super important. So very often landscape painters will want to have, a clear, direct sunlight across their scene, and then have the scene creating really big shapes of dark, shapes of shadow, and shapes of light in a way where those shapes create an interesting design, almost like an abstract design that works. And it's a similar thing with figures, etc. So my point here is not that the subject needs to be sort of beautiful in the conventional sense, like, it has to be an amazing waterfall to create an amazing painting. That's absolutely not what I mean. And very often the amazing waterfall or whatever is not going to be it's going to be really hard to make that a good painting, right? Because it might not be making the shapes that you need for your design that you want to make. And it could be a pile of garbage where the sunlight is hitting it just so, there's big, medium, small shapes. It could be any subject, but it can't just be any kind of lighting with any kind of shapes in it. If the lighting is really even, or if the lighting is creating lots of disparate, like let's say you have an object here and one object here, and they're all just separate, there's no overlaps, there's no interesting merging of those shapes into bigger shapes or big, medium, small shapes, etc. The composition's not going to work from the start. So that's what I mean. And it's the same with the figure. Or the portrait. I'm not suggesting a person has to look a certain way. They can have any type of, of body or any type of face. But the point is, how is the lighting hitting that face? What are the shapes that you're getting from that reference? And are they going to work in an abstract way? And if they are, you're setting yourself up for success with that painting or drawing. And if they aren't, it doesn't matter how skilled you are, it's going to be such a struggle to make it work. So you don't have to, as an artist, the selection of what you're drawing and painting really sets you up for success or sets you up for failure. So those were the big 3 myths. Let me know if there are other myths about art that you have come across and that have held you back. Let us know in the comments. It's good for us to be aware of these things so that they don't hold us back. In our study group, we have lots of technical instruction courses taking you through step by step to learn your fundamental skills with figures and with portraits, but we also have a lot of this type of support. So I'll run live sessions where we plan for people. How are you going to structure your practice? What do you need to learn in order to get to your goals? These kinds of how to learn, how to set yourself up for success stuff, we cover that as well. So check out the study group, there's a link below. And for right now, I have another video about 3 other myths in art, which is also really good. So check it out and I'll see you over there.